Captain Jake Morrison rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the communications panel in the command center of Frontier Station Alpha. The coffee in his mug had gone cold hours ago, but he barely noticed. 3 days had passed since the strange signal first appeared on their long-range sensors, and sleep had become a luxury he could not afford. The signal was unlike anything they had encountered before. It was not the usual merchant vessel requesting docking permission or the weekly supply ship from Earth Command. This transmission carried something different in its electronic pulse, something that made the hair on Jake's arms stand up every time he heard it. Dr. Lisa Carter rushed into the command center, her lab coat wrinkled and her usually neat hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She had been working nonstop to decode the alien transmission, and the excitement in her eyes told Jake she had made a breakthrough. "Captain, you need to hear this," Lisa said, her voice trembling with both exhaustion and wonder. She moved to the communications console and began adjusting the frequency settings. "I finally managed to clean up the signal and isolate the speech patterns." Jake leaned forward in his chair as Lisa activated the playback system. The speakers crackled to life, and through the static came a voice that was unmistakably female, speaking in broken but understandable English. "Please, humans of the Frontier Station," the voice began, each word carefully pronounced as if the speaker had practiced them countless times. "We are women of Zephyr World. Our home is gone. Our men are dead. We run from the Dominion Empire. They want to make us slaves. We beg you, please let us come to your station." Jake felt his heart skip a beat. First contact with an alien species was supposed to be a momentous occasion, carefully planned and executed according to strict protocols. Instead, he was listening to what sounded like a desperate plea for help from refugees fleeing some kind of disaster. The voice continued, and Jake could hear the desperation growing stronger with each sentence. "We know your ways from your broadcasts. We study your television shows and your radio signals. We learn to work hard and cook good food. We learn to bond with families and be good companions. We promise we will be good girls. We will work and cook and bond. Just please let us in." Lisa looked at Jake with wide eyes. "Captain, there's more. The signal is coming from a ship about 6 hours away at current speed. My scans show. It's badly damaged and running on minimal power. Life support systems are failing." Jake stood up and began pacing behind his chair. Protocol demanded that he contact Earth Command immediately and wait for instructions before making any decisions about first contact. But the desperation in that alien voice kept echoing in his mind, and 6 hours might not be enough time to get authorization from Earth. "How many are on that ship?" Jake asked. Lisa consulted her readings. "Energy signatures suggest approximately 300 life forms. All appear to be the same species, and if the voice is accurate, they're all female." Station Commander Greg Phillips entered the command center at that moment, having been summoned by the emergency alert. Greg was a practical man in his 50s who had run Frontier Station Alpha for almost a decade. He had seen his share of unusual situations, but nothing had prepared him for this. "Captain Morrison, Dr. Carter, give me a full report," Greg said. Settling into his chair at the main command console, Jake explained the situation while Lisa played the transmission again. Greg listened in silence, his weathered face showing no emotion until the alien voice finished speaking. Then he leaned back in his chair and let out a long sigh. 300 alien refugees asking for asylum," Greg said slowly. "The Bros back on Earth are going to have a field day with this one." "Commander," Jake said, "that ship is failing. If we wait for authorization from Earth Command, they might not survive long enough to receive an answer." Greg nodded grimly. "I'm aware of that, Captain. But we also have 1,800 human civilians on this station to think about. We have no idea what these aliens are really like or what they're capable of." Lisa stepped forward. "Sir, I've been analyzing their biological signatures. They appear to be humanoid, similar to us in many ways. Their ship shows no signs of advanced weapon systems, and they're clearly in distress." "That could be a trick," Greg pointed out. "How do we know this isn't some kind of elaborate deception?" Before anyone could answer, the communications console chimed with an incoming message. Lisa quickly activated the system, and the alien voice filled the command center. Once again. "Human station, please respond," the voice said, and Jake could hear tears in the alien's words. "Our ship is breaking. Our air is running out. We have children with us. Please, we are not warriors. We are just women who want to live and work and be part of families. We will do anything you ask. We will clean your floors and cook your meals. And take care of your children. Just please do not let us die in the cold space." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in heavy silence. Jake looked at Greg and saw the internal struggle playing out on the commander's face. They were frontier personnel, used to making difficult decisions with limited information and support. "Sir," Jake said quietly, "if this is a deception, it's the most elaborate and heart-wrenching one I've ever encountered, but if it's real, and we turn them away, we'll have the deaths of 300 sentient beings on our consciences." Greg was quiet for a long moment, staring at the star charts displayed on the main screen. Finally, he turned to Lisa. "Doctor, in your professional opinion, what's the likelihood that this is genuine?" Lisa considered the question carefully. Based on the ship's condition, their obvious distress, and the consistency of their story, I believe there's a 90% chance this is a legitimate refugee situation. The energy readings from their ship support their claims about system failures and depleted resources. Greg nodded slowly. "Captain Morrison, prepare a response. Tell them they have permission to approach the station, but make it clear that they'll be subject to full security screening and quarantine procedures." Jake felt a mixture of relief and apprehension as he moved to the communications console. He was about to make first contact with an alien species, and the weight of that responsibility was overwhelming. "Refugee vessel, this is Captain Jake Morrison of Frontier Station Alpha," he said into the microphone. "We have received your request for asylum. You are granted permission to approach our station. Please maintain current heading and prepare for security screening upon arrival." The response came immediately, and Jake could hear the joy and relief in the alien voice. "Thank you, Captain Morrison. Thank you so much. We promise we will be. Good. We will work hard and cause no trouble. You will not regret helping us." As the transmission ended, Greg stood up and placed a hand on Jake's shoulder. "I hope we're doing the right thing, Captain." Jake nodded, watching the approaching ship. "On the long-range sensors?" "So do I, Commander, so do I." 3 months had passed since the Zephyrian women first arrived at Frontier Station Alpha, and the temporary housing units in Section C had become their new home. The transition had been anything but smooth, yet somehow these alien refugees had managed to find their place among the human population in ways that surprised everyone. Dr. Amy Rodriguez walked through the corridors of the residential section, observing the daily interactions between humans and Zephyrians with the trained eye of a psychologist. What she saw challenged everything she thought she knew about interspecies relations. The Zephyrian women moved through the station with quiet grace, their blue-tinged skin and delicate features no longer drawing stares from the human residents who had grown accustomed to their presence. The most remarkable thing about the Zephyrians was their ability to understand human emotions and social dynamics without formal training. Amy had watched them navigate complex workplace relationships, family disputes, and personal conflicts with an intuitive understanding that took human counselors years to develop. They seemed to know exactly what each person needed, whether it was a listening ear, practical help, or simply someone to sit quietly beside them. Villara had emerged as the unofficial leader of the Zephyrian women, though she insisted she was simply a spokesperson for the group. Amy found her in the hydroponics bay, working alongside human technicians to maintain the station's food production systems. The alien woman's hands moved with practiced efficiency as she tended to the growing plants. Her movements synchronized perfectly with those of her human coworkers. "Good morning, Dr. Rodriguez," Villara said without looking up from her work. "The tomatoes are responding well to the nutrient adjustments we suggested yesterday." Amy smiled at the casual way Villara included herself in the station's operations. The Zephyrian women had integrated themselves into every aspect of life on the station, from technical maintenance to childcare to food preparation. They had done so with such humble eagerness that most humans had stopped thinking of them as outsiders. "The yield has increased by 15%, confirmed Tony Martinez, the chief engineer who supervised the hydroponic systems. "I have to admit, their suggestions have been invaluable. They seem to understand plant biology in ways that complement our technology perfectly." Amy nodded, making mental notes for her daily report. The Zephyrian women had proven to be remarkably adaptable, picking up human customs and work practices with surprising speed. More importantly, they had shown a genuine desire to contribute to the station's well-being rather than simply taking advantage of human hospitality. However, not everyone was pleased with the alien presence. Security Chief Carol Bennett had expressed concerns about resource allocation and potential security risks. Some human workers worried that the Zephyrians' eagerness to help might eventually cost them their jobs. These tensions simmered beneath the surface of daily life, creating an undercurrent of uncertainty that Amy was tasked with monitoring. The real test of integration came in the personal relationships that had begun forming between humans and Zephyrians. Amy had documented dozens of cases where the alien women had formed deep emotional bonds with human families, often filling roles that had been left vacant by circumstance or tragedy. Single parents found themselves with devoted caregivers who seemed to understand their children's needs better than anyone else. Elderly residents discovered companions who listened to their stories with genuine interest and provided comfort during difficult times. Even hardened station personnel who had initially been skeptical of the aliens found themselves relying on their emotional support and practical assistance. The most striking example was the relationship between Velara and Jake Morrison's family. Amy had observed their interactions carefully, noting how the alien woman had naturally stepped into the role of extended family member. She helped Jake's wife Rachel with household tasks, provided emotional support during Jake's long duty shifts, and had formed a particularly strong bond with their young son, Danny. Danny had been struggling with nightmares and anxiety since the arrival of the Zephyrians, not from fear of the aliens themselves, but from the general tension and uncertainty their presence had created on the station. Traditional counseling methods had provided limited relief, but Velara had introduced the boy to Zephyrian meditation, techniques that seemed to calm his troubled mind. Amy watched through the observation window as Velara sat with Danny in the family quarters, teaching him breathing exercises that involved visualizing peaceful scenes from the Zephyrian homeworld. The boy's face was relaxed and focused, his earlier anxiety replaced by a sense of calm that Amy had not seen in weeks. "She has a gift," Rachel Morrison said quietly, joining Amy at the observation window. "I've never seen Danny respond to anyone. The way he responds to her, it's like she knows exactly what he needs before he even asks." Amy nodded, recognizing the truth in Rachel's words. The Zephyrian women possessed an emotional intelligence that seemed almost supernatural in its accuracy. They could read human moods and motivations with uncanny precision, responding to needs that people didn't even know they had. This ability had made them valuable in ways that went beyond simple labor or companionship. They had become informal mediators in workplace disputes, counselors for troubled individuals, and bridges between different groups within the station's diverse population. Their presence had actually reduced the number of conflicts and improved overall morale among the human residents, but Amy's professional training made her wonder about the deeper implications of these relationships. Were the Zephyrians genuinely caring for humans out of gratitude and affection, or was this behavior part of some survival strategy that ensured their continued acceptance on the station? The question troubled her because the answer would determine how sustainable these bonds would be in the long term. During her weekly interview with Velara, Amy decided to address these concerns directly. They sat in the small office that served as Amy's counseling space, the alien woman's posture relaxed and open as always. "Velara, I need to ask you something that might seem personal," Amy began carefully. "The bonds you and your people have formed with human families seem very deep and genuine. but I wonder if you could help me understand the motivations behind them." Velara was quiet for a moment, her large eyes reflecting a sadness that Amy had learned to recognize as memories of her lost homeworld. "Dr. Rodriguez, on Zephyr, we believe that the purpose of existence was to create and maintain emotional connections with others. We do not form bonds because we must, but because we cannot exist without them." "What do you mean by that?" Amy asked. "Your people seem to think that independence and self-reliance are virtues," Velar explained. "For us, isolation is a form of death. We need to care for others and be cared for in return. When we help human families, we are not just serving them, we are fulfilling our own deepest needs." Amy felt a chill of understanding. The Zephyrian women were not simply adapting to human society, they were becoming emotionally dependent on it. Their integration was not just about finding work and shelter, it was about finding the emotional connections that gave their lives meaning. This revelation changed everything. Amy thought she knew about the refugee situation. The Zephyrians were not temporary guests who would eventually move on to establish their own communities. They were becoming permanent members of human families and social structures, bound by emotional ties that ran deeper than simple gratitude or mutual benefit. As Amy prepared her report for Commander Phillips, she realized that the station was witnessing something unprecedented in human history. Two species were not just coexisting, they were beginning to emotionally merge in ways that would fundamentally change both cultures. The question was whether humanity was ready for such a transformation. Dr. Lisa Carter stared at the data streaming across her laboratory screens, her coffee growing cold as she tried to make sense of what she was seeing. The neural scans of the Zephyrian women showed brain patterns unlike anything in human medical literature, with activity levels in regions that corresponded to emotional processing and social bonding far exceeding normal parameters. For weeks, Lisa had been studying the alien women with their full cooperation, trying to understand their remarkable ability to connect with human families and workers. What she had discovered was both fascinating and unsettling. The Zephyrians were not just emotionally intelligent in the way humans understood the term, they were something far more extraordinary. The breakthrough came during a routine medical examination of Kareneth, one of the younger Zephyrian women who worked in the station's child care facility. Lisa had been monitoring her brain activity while she interacted with human children, expecting to see normal patterns of attention and care. Instead, the readings showed something that should have been impossible. Kareneth's neural activity was synchronizing with the children around her. When a little girl felt sad about missing her parents, Kareneth's brain showed matching patterns of sadness and comfort. When a boy became excited about a game, her neural responses mirrored his joy. She was not just observing emotions, she was experiencing them directly. Lisa ran the test again with different Zephyrian women, each time getting similar results. The aliens were empathic in the most literal sense of the word. They could feel what others felt, share in their emotional experiences, and somehow influence the emotional states of those around them. The implications were staggering. This ability explained why the Zephyrian women had integrated so seamlessly into human society. They were not guessing at what humans needed, they were feeling those needs directly. Their remarkable success as caregivers, counselors, and companions was not just cultural adaptation, it was a biological function. Lisa was still processing this discovery when the emergency alarm sounded throughout the station. She rushed to the command center to find Jake Morrison coordinating response teams as red warning lights flashed overhead. The main fusion reactor had developed a serious malfunction, and the automated safety systems were struggling to contain the problem. "What's the situation?" Lisa asked as she entered the command center. "Coolant leak in the primary reactor core," Jake replied, his voice tight with stress. "We've got maybe 2 hours before we have to initiate emergency shutdown, and that means life support failure for the entire station." Lisa watched the human crew working frantically at their stations, their faces showing the strain of the crisis. Engineering teams were scrambling to repair the damage while technical specialists tried to reroute power systems to buy more time. The atmosphere was filled with tension and barely controlled panic. Then she noticed something remarkable. The Zephyrian women throughout the station were moving with calm purpose, their presence somehow steadying the humans around them. In the engineering section, Velara worked alongside Tony Martinez, her quiet confidence helping him focus on the complex repairs. In the command center, another Zephyrian woman named Solaris stood beside the communications officer, her mere presence seeming to reduce his anxiety. Lisa realized she was witnessing the Zephyrian empathic ability in action. They were not just feeling the human emotions around them, they were actively influencing those emotions, projecting calm and confidence into the minds of their human colleagues. The panicked atmosphere of the crisis was being transformed into focused determination. The repair work proceeded with unusual efficiency. Human technicians who should have been overwhelmed by stress worked with steady hands and clear minds. Engineers who normally struggled with complex problem-solving found creative solutions flowing naturally. The entire station seemed to be operating as a unified organism, each person knowing exactly what needed to be done. Lieutenant Kevin Ross, who had been among the most skeptical of the alien women, found himself working side by side with Taraves in the reactor core chamber. The radiation levels were dangerous and the work required absolute precision. Under normal circumstances, Kevin would have been fighting waves of fear and adrenaline that could have led to fatal mistakes. Instead, he felt unusually calm and focused. His hands moved with steady precision as he completed the delicate welding work needed to seal the coolant leak. Taravis worked beside him, her alien features serene despite the danger they both faced. Kevin could feel her confidence flowing into him, steadying his nerves and sharpening his concentration. The crisis was resolved in just under an hour, a fraction of the time such repairs normally required. As the reactor stabilized and the emergency lights switched off, the human crew members looked around in amazement. They had performed far beyond their usual capabilities, working together with a coordination that seemed almost supernatural. Jake gathered the senior staff for a debriefing, but the questions on everyone's minds were not about technical procedures or safety protocols. They wanted to understand how the crisis had been resolved so smoothly and why they had all felt so unusually calm and capable during the emergency. It was them, Kevin said quietly, gesturing toward the Zephyrian women who had helped with the repairs. I don't know how to explain it, but working with Tarvas was like having someone inside my head, helping me think clearly and stay focused. Lisa felt her scientific excitement building. This was the proof she needed to confirm her theory about Zephyrian empathic abilities. But she also realized that this discovery would raise serious questions about the nature of their relationship with the human population. Commander Phillips called for a meeting with the Zephyrian leadership, and Velara joined them in the main conference room. The alien woman's expression was serious as she took her seat, clearly understanding that their abilities had been revealed during the crisis. Velara, Phillips began carefully, we need to discuss what happened during the reactor emergency. Our people performed far beyond normal parameters, and many of them reported feeling unusually calm and focused while working alongside your women. Velara nodded slowly. We wondered when you would notice. We have been trying to help without being obvious about our abilities. What exactly are your abilities? Lisa asked, leaning forward with scientific curiosity. We feel what others feel, Velara explained simply. When you are afraid, we feel your fear. When you are happy, we share your joy, but we can also give back. We can share our calm with those who are panicked, our confidence with those who doubt themselves. Jake felt a chill of understanding. You've been influencing our emotions since you arrived. Not influencing, Velara corrected gently. Sharing. We cannot make you feel something that is not already within you. We can only help you find the calm and strength that already exists in your hearts. Phillips leaned back in his chair, processing this revelation. Are you controlling us? Are our feelings for your people genuine, or are they the result of manipulation? The pain that flashed across Velara's face was unmistakable. Commander, we cannot fake the emotions we share. When we feel love for your families, it is real. Love. When we feel gratitude for your kindness, it is genuine gratitude. Our ability works both ways. We feel everything you feel, and that includes the pain of being suspected of deception. Lisa realized that this was the key to understanding the Zephyrian integration. They were not manipulating human emotions, they were becoming emotionally intertwined with the human population. Their empathic abilities created genuine bonds that grew stronger over time. The more we bond with humans, Velara continued, the more we need those bonds to survive. We are not using you, we are becoming part of you. And you are becoming part of us. The meeting ended with more questions than answers. But Lisa knew that their understanding of the Zephyrian women had fundamentally changed. These were not just refugees seeking shelter, they were a species whose very survival depended on forming deep emotional connections with others. Their integration into human society was not just cultural adaptation, it was biological necessity. As the station returned to normal operations, Lisa began planning new research into the implications of human-Zephyrian emotional bonding. She suspected that both species were being changed by their interaction in ways that would reshape the future of interspecies relations throughout the galaxy. The peace that had settled over Frontier Station Alpha was shattered when Lieutenant Sarah Blake burst into the command center at 3 a.m, her face pale with exhaustion and fear. She had been monitoring long-range sensors during her night shift when the readings that appeared on her screen made her blood run cold. "Commander Phillips, Captain Morrison, you need to see this immediately," Sarah said, her voice trembling as she activated the main display. The holographic projection showed a massive fleet of ships approaching their system, their energy signatures unlike anything in the human database. Jake studied the sensor readings with growing dread. The fleet consisted of over 200 vessels, ranging from massive battleships to smaller escort craft. Their formation was perfect, their approach methodical, and their intentions were clear from the weapon signatures that blazed across the display like angry red stars. "How long until they reach us?" Phillips asked, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. 18 hours at current speed," Sarah replied. "Sir, the lead ship is broadcasting a message on all frequencies. It's in the same language the Zephyrian women speak." Phillips and Jake exchanged grim looks. They both knew what this meant. The Dominion Empire had finally tracked down the refugees, and they were bringing enough firepower to destroy not just the station but everything in the system. Velara was summoned to the command center to translate the message. As the alien, words filled the room, her face grew ashen and her hands began to tremble. When the transmission ended, she looked up at the human officers with tears streaming down her cheeks. "They demand we surrender all Zephyrian women immediately," she said in a voice barely above a whisper. "They call us escaped property that must be returned to serve the Empire. If we are not handed over within 12 hours of their arrival, they will destroy this station and hunt down every human settlement until they find us." The weight of the situation settled over the command center like a suffocating blanket. 300 alien women had brought death to the doorstep of Frontier Station Alpha, and 1,800 human civilians were about to pay the price for harboring them. Jake felt anger rising in his chest as he thought about the Dominion's casual threat to destroy human colonies. These were the same aliens who had murdered the Zephyrian men and enslaved their women, treating sentient beings like livestock to be collected and traded. Within hours, Admiral Victoria Shaw arrived from Earth Command with the largest defense fleet she could assemble on short notice. Her flagship, the UES Defender, docked with the station as smaller vessels took defensive positions around the system. But everyone knew the human forces were outnumbered and outgunned by a ratio that made victory seem impossible. Admiral Shaw met with the station leadership in the main conference room, her weathered face showing the strain of commanding what might be humanity's last stand in this sector. She had fought the Dominion before and knew their reputation for brutality and overwhelming force. "The situation is clear," Shaw said without preamble. "We have 42 ships against their 200. Our weapons are advanced, but they have numbers and experience. I can delay them, maybe even inflict significant casualties, but I cannot guarantee victory." Commander Phillips leaned forward across the table. "What are our options, Admiral?" Shaw's expression was grim. "Officially, Earth Command recommends we negotiate. Turn over the refugees in exchange for safe passage for our civilians." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken thoughts. Jake found himself thinking about Velara reading bedtime stories to his son, about the Zephyrian women who had become aunts and sisters and friends to families throughout the station. The idea of handing them over to slavery felt like a betrayal of everything humanity claimed to stand for. "Unofficially," Shaw continued, "I've been authorized to fight if that's what this station decides. But I want everyone to understand what that means. Many of us will die, and there's no guarantee we can protect the people we're trying to save." The meeting was interrupted when Velara requested permission to address the human leadership. She entered the conference room accompanied by 12 other Zephyrian women, their faces showing a resignation that Jake had never seen before. "Commanders, Admiral Shaw," Velara began, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes, "we have discussed this situation among ourselves, and we have reached a decision. We cannot allow humans to die because of us. We will surrender ourselves to the Dominion." Jake felt his heart clench. "Velara, you don't understand what you're saying. These people destroyed your world and enslaved your species." "We understand perfectly," she replied. "But we also understand what it means to love someone more than you love yourself. You humans have shown us kindness when you could have turned us away. You have welcomed us into your families and made us part of your lives. We cannot repay that gift by allowing you to be destroyed." The other Zephyrian women nodded in agreement, their faces showing the same painful resolve. They had made their choice, and nothing the humans could say would change their minds. "We will take a shuttle to the Dominion fleet," Velara continued. "We will tell them that we surrender willingly and that you humans were only following your laws about helping refugees. Perhaps they will spare your station." Admiral Shaw stood up abruptly. "Like hell you will." Everyone turned to look at the Admiral in surprise. Shaw's face was flushed with anger, and her fists were clenched at her. "Sides, I've been fighting the Dominion for 15 years, Shaw said, her voice rising. "I've seen what they do to the species they conquer. I've pulled survivors from the wreckage of colonies they've destroyed for sport. These women aren't going anywhere." Jake felt a surge of pride and determination. "Admiral, the station personnel have already voted? We fight?" Shaw smiled grimly. "Then we fight, but we're going to need every advantage we can get." Dr. Lisa Carter had been quiet during the meeting, but now she leaned forward with excitement in her eyes. "Admiral, I think I know how we might be able to level the odds. The Zephyrian empathic abilities could be the key to victory." She quickly explained her theory about using the aliens' emotional influence to affect enemy crews across space. It was a desperate plan that could burn out the Zephyrians' neural systems. But it might be their only chance of survival. Velara listened to the proposal with growing understanding. "You want us to reach across space and touch the minds of the Dominion soldiers." "The Dominion uses enslaved species as crew members," Lisa explained. "If you could reach those enslaved minds and show them hope, show them that freedom is possible, you might be able to turn their own ships against them." The plan was dangerous beyond measure. The Zephyrian women would have to link their minds together and project their empathic influence across impossible distances. The neural strain could kill them all, but it might also save both species from destruction. Velara looked around the room at the human faces filled with determination and hope. These people were willing to die rather than abandon their alien friends. The least the Zephyrians could do was risk everything to help them fight. "We will do it," she said simply. "But understand that some of us may not survive the attempt." Jake reached across the table and took her hand. "We understand. And we're grateful beyond words." As the Dominion fleet drew closer, both species prepared for a battle that would determine not just their survival, but the future of freedom in their corner of the galaxy. The Zephyrian women gathered in the station's central meditation chamber. linking their minds in preparation for the most dangerous empathic projection they had ever attempted. The battle for Frontier Station Alpha began at dawn, when the first Dominion ships entered weapons range and opened fire with devastating energy beams that lit up the darkness of space. Admiral Shaw's defense fleet responded immediately, their smaller but more advanced vessels dancing between the massive enemy. Battleships like wolves attacking a herd of giants. Jake Morrison watched the battle unfold from the station's command center, his heart pounding as human ships traded fire with the overwhelming Dominion fleet. Explosions bloomed across the void as vessels on both sides took critical damage, but the mathematics of the engagement were brutally clear. For every Dominion ship destroyed, humanity lost 2 of their own. In the central meditation chamber, Velara and 200 other Zephyrian women sat in perfect silence, their minds linked in the most ambitious empathic projection their species had ever attempted. Their blue-tinged skin had taken on an almost ethereal glow as their neural systems pushed beyond safe limits, reaching across the vast distances of space to touch the minds of their enemies. Dr. Lisa Carter monitored their vital signs from her mobile medical station, watching with growing alarm as their brain activity spiked to dangerous levels. Several of the younger women had already collapsed from the strain, their neural pathways overloaded by the effort of projecting their consciousness across space. "Velara, you need to reduce the intensity," Lisa called out, but the alien woman showed no sign of hearing her. The Zephyrians were completely focused on their task, pouring their combined empathic energy toward the Dominion fleet like a river of pure emotion flowing through the void. The first sign that their plan was working came when one of the smaller Dominion escort ships suddenly stopped firing and began drifting away from the main formation. Then another ship followed, and another, until nearly a dozen vessels had broken away from their attack positions. Admiral Shaw's voice crackled over the communications system from her flagship. "Something's happening out here. Enemy ships are going dark and falling out of formation. Their attack patterns are breaking down." Jake felt a surge of hope as he watched the tactical display. The Dominion fleet was losing cohesion as more and more ships stopped responding to their commanders' orders. But the cost was becoming visible in the medical bay, where Zephyrian women were collapsing one by one from the neural strain. The breakthrough came when the empathic wave reached the largest Dominion battleship, a massive vessel filled with enslaved crews from a dozen different species. For generations, these beings had served their conquerors without hope, their spirits broken by years of brutal oppression. But now they felt something they had almost forgotten: the possibility of freedom. The rebellion spread through the Dominion fleet like wildfire. Enslaved gunners turned their weapons on their masters. Oppressed engineers sabotaged their own ship systems. Species that had been forced to fight for the Empire suddenly remembered what they were fighting against. Lieutenant Kevin Ross, commanding one of the human defense ships, watched in amazement as a massive Dominion cruiser began firing on its own escort vessels. "Admiral, are you seeing this? The enemy fleet is turning on itself." Shaw's response was filled with wonder and disbelief. "All ships maintain defensive positions but hold fire unless directly engaged. Let them tear each other apart." The space battle transformed from a desperate last stand into a chaotic free-for-all as the Dominion fleet collapsed from within. Ships that had been instruments of oppression became symbols of liberation as their enslaved crews fought for the freedom that the Zephyrian empathic wave had shown them was possible, but the victory was coming at a terrible price. In the meditation chamber, more than half of the Zephyrian women had collapsed from neural exhaustion. Their empathic projection had saved both species, but the effort was burning out their minds like overloaded circuits. Velara was among the last to fall. Her consciousness stretched across impossible distances as she maintained the empathic link that was holding the rebellion together. Jake knelt beside her as she collapsed, her body trembling from the strain of what she had accomplished. "Did we save them?" she whispered, her voice barely audible above the sounds of medical equipment. "Did we save your people?" Jake took her hand, feeling tears streaming down his face. You saved everyone? You saved the entire galaxy? Dr. Carter worked frantically to stabilize the collapsed Zephyrians, but the damage to their neural systems was severe. Many had pushed their abilities so far beyond safe limits that they might never fully recover. The women who had begged to be allowed to work and cook and bond had instead become the saviors of countless enslaved species throughout the Dominion. Empire, the aftermath of the battle revealed the true scope of what the Zephyrians had accomplished. The rebellion they had sparked with their empathic projection spread to Dominion territories throughout the galaxy. Enslaved worlds rose up against their oppressors, guided by the hope and courage that the alien women had shared with them across the vast distances of space. Within days, news arrived that the Dominion capital world had fallen to a coalition of liberated species. The empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries was crumbling as its enslaved populations fought for the freedom they had been shown was possible, but for Jake and the other residents of Frontier Station Alpha, the larger implications of victory were overshadowed by concern for the Zephyrian women who had sacrificed so much to achieve it. Many remained in deep comas, their neural patterns barely registering on medical scanners. The women who had asked for nothing more than the chance to be part of human families had instead given everything to save both species. Velara was among the most severely affected. Her neural activity reduced to almost nothing as her mind struggled to recover from the massive empathic projection. Jake maintained a constant vigil at her bedside, reading to her from the same children's books she had once shared with his son for 3 days. There was no change in her condition. Then, on the 4th morning, her eyes slowly opened and focused on Jake's face. Her first words were spoken in a voice so weak he had to lean close to hear them. "Did our children understand why we had to leave them?" she asked, referring to the human families throughout the station. Jake felt his heart break and heal at the same time. Even after everything she had sacrificed, Velara's first concern was for the emotional well-being of the humans she had bonded with. "They understand," he told her gently. "They understand that you saved them all." The recovery process was slow and difficult. Many of the Zephyrian women suffered permanent damage to their empathic abilities, while others experienced memory loss and neurological complications. But they had survived, and more importantly, they had proven that their bonds with humanity were stronger than any threat the galaxy could produce. In the months that followed, Frontier Station Alpha became a symbol of interspecies cooperation and the power of emotional bonds to overcome seemingly impossible odds. The Zephyrian women who had begged to be allowed to work and cook and bond had instead become teachers and healers and heroes, whose example inspired peaceful cooperation throughout the galaxy. Earth Command established new programs to help other refugee species integrate into human society, guided by the lessons learned from the Zephyrian experience. The alien women had shown that true strength came not from weapons or technology, but from the willingness to sacrifice for others and the courage to fight for what was right. Velara, though forever changed by her ordeal, continued to serve as a bridge between species and a symbol of hope for the future. She had asked to be a good girl who would work and cook and bond, and had instead become something far greater, a reminder that the greatest victories are won not through force, but through love and the unbreakable bonds that connect all sentient beings. The last entry in Jake's official report summarized what had happened in simple terms that would be remembered throughout human history. They came as refugees begging for mercy. They became family members offering love. In the end, they saved us all by showing us the true meaning of courage and sacrifice.